This is Active Recall. These are book notes for a book called Thinking in Bets. It's by Annie Duke. Annie Duke is a professional poker player. She has a World Series of Poker gold bracelet and studied psychology and English at Columbia and is an expert in decision making. So this is a look at some of the notes that I wrote. I'll go over these one by one. There are some more, so I'm going to kind of like run through these shorter ones. So again, thinking in bets. There is this importance of context that is talked about throughout the book, and she uses the story of David Letterman asking a question out of in the wrong context. Then something else she talks about is the importance of having a group to test out your decisions and to talk through your decisions that you've made to figure out if you're making the right decisions. Not that the outcomes are what's important. So that is a big thing in this, is that separating the outcome from the decision. So with that group, or next up, quality of decisions, recognizing the quality of our decisions and luck, and how those two things are separate, and that both of them are important to have things go the right way. You have different ways to decide things right now for your future self. An important part of that is recognizing what your future self would want to do, because that will, of course, eventually be you. And then, this idea of resulting, that a bad result doesn't necessarily mean a bad decision, and this is something that often comes up. This is the end zone of a certain nightmare of mine, Super Bowl between the Seahawks and Patriots, and it's really like this anchor story in the book. So you've got some decisions to make, whether it's at a table, on a field, or in life. This is a book that will help. So now I'm going to dig into some of these topics. With decision making, she talks about expected values and just understanding that concept when you're making decisions, because your decisions are really about probability of, a lot of things you can think things through and still not know exactly what's going to happen, or most things that you're making a decision about, it's not a problem to solve. But here's an example. So you have two paths that you could take. One prize has $1,000, or one prize is $1,000, one prize is $1 million. Without context, of course, if it's exactly the same thing, then you want the $1 million prize. So let's take a look though. So maybe you're betting on a fight. The prize is $1,000 if Conor McGregor wins. Seems like a pretty good fighter. So maybe that's a good bet. Just taking that against any other fighter, fine. Then you can bet on Conor McGregor. Prize is $1 million, so of course you want to take that, right? But then if he's fighting a bear, then that really changes things. That changes the context of this decision. And then just talking about this, so if we have odds, just say Conor McGregor is fighting someone, and the odds in some way, you bet enough that the odds mean that you're going to win $1,000. So maybe he's a 2-to-1 favorite. Anyway, I'm messing this up, but this is how you get the, if you just look at these things as prizes. So let's forget that it's a fight. If you're just doing something where you bet on one ball and there are two balls, or hold on, let's say it's a coin flip. In one case it's a coin flip. If you win, you get $1,000. Or you can do another contest where there's 1 million balls and you'll win $1 million. This makes it pretty clear, but the math here is that in the coin flip case, you have a 50% chance of winning, so the expected value here is $500. So take the 1,000 and it becomes 500. In the other case, the odds are 1 in a million, and the prize is $1 million. But because of the math here, the expected value is $1. And just comparing these, you definitely want to take the path and join the contest with the coin flip because the expected value is 500 times higher. More money talk. So make 100, lose 100. This is just another one of these kind of like math stories. So you're with some friends in Vegas. Which of these options would you pick? Win 100 or lose 100? Like, clearly you would want to win 100, right? But let's change some words around. Now you're gambling with some friends. Which of these would you pick? You're up $10,000 early on, then you go on a bad run. You lose over $9,000 and end up at the end of the weekend with $100. Or the second scenario, you're down early by $10,000. Maybe you just made a bunch of bets against a bear. And then you go on a good run, and by the end of the weekend, you're only down $100. So, at the end of the day, it feels like in the first case you lost $9,900. And just logically, that's better. But context matters so much. So we like to have that comeback story and have that narrative where, that's a much more positive story. I was down so much, but then I was able to claw my way back, and I only lost $100. That ends up being very positive, but it can kind of bite people and bite you if you don't always think logically. If you become more emotion-based. Like, let's say this was every weekend that this happened over the course of 10 years. Then by the end of that, you would be down thousands and thousands of dollars, even though you kept coming back every weekend. In the other case, you're up big time over the course of that. Annie Duke says, thinking in bets starts with recognizing that there are exactly two things that determine how our lives turn out: the quality of decisions and luck. Learning to recognize the difference between the two is what thinking in bets is all about. So all these decisions, not just gambling, all the decisions that you take in life, or that you make in life, have some percentage outcome that you can't really, we don't know what the exact percentages are of certain things happening. So you have to kind of like predict that. So diving more into this luck or skill thing, kind of one of my favorite topics to like think about. So you'll see a lot of, this is kind of one reason you might want to avoid an autobiography by someone successful in business that wants to use a book as like a business card or something like that, where they say, all my company's success is because of my hard work. This is the whole story about how my hard work was. Like, you don't want to read that. And also, it's probably not true. It's this thing like, are you sure that everything was your hard work? Or there are cases where like maybe you're not recognizing, some people aren't recognizing where they started in life compared to other people, and maybe don't give that enough credit. On the other hand, maybe you think, I just got lucky, so you could be lucky too, just keep at it. Then are you sure about that? That can be another thing. If someone just says, 100%, like someone super successful just says like, it's just luck. I just got lucky, like caught a bunch of breaks in a row, and that's probably not the case either. And that can be discouraging too, because if you want to follow their success, you can't just hope to get lucky. So everything is because of my hard work, or I'm just lucky. It's good to recognize that life is somewhere in between, success is somewhere in between. It involves both of those factors. So Annie Duke in the book says, certainly in exchange, or here, I'll just skip to this one. So remember, losing feels about twice as bad as winning feels good. Being wrong feels about twice as bad as being right feels good. I think the takeaway here is that if you want, it is that thing of like, I guess like a quarterback in football, or like any team captain, if you're going to take credit for the hard work and the success, then you also should take credit for the failures, and then recognize if you're going to. So there is like this nice thing of believing in both sides of this, that if you work really hard and fail, then you know that part of that was luck, just getting an unlucky break. Anyway, I'll move on. So yeah, just kind of the takeaway there is luck and skill, or luck and hard work, both important. Next, you versus your future self. So, Back to the Future. One of the key things that Marty had to do was try to avoid getting in contact with himself, or like anything that will change the future. Very bad things can happen if you try to do that. And the Chrono Trigger, if you go to the past, don't open some of these boxes and wait, then you're doing a favor for your future self, so that's a good thing. Dark Souls, if you have to go down an elevator to fight a boss, then send the elevator back up, because if you die to that boss, die fighting that boss, then you have to run back through the same path, and the elevator's going to be waiting for you, and you won't have to wait for it. So do nice things for your future self when you're making these decisions, and then also recognize that the mood that you're in right now is not necessarily the mood you'll be in the future. So just keep track. It can be good to track some decisions and reflect on how past decisions have made you feel in the present, and not to give your future self a bad hand. So in relation to this, Andy Duke says, in most of our decisions, we are not betting against another person. Rather, we are betting against all the future versions of ourselves that we are not choosing. So that's another thing. A lot of future selves. So you make these decisions picturing a good outcome and how your future self will feel. Now, downside to the book, just one big one, and it is reliving one of the worst sports moments of my life. So probably the worst. So of course, Seahawks decide to pass the ball, gets intercepted, and we see this. I've seen this clip. It comes up every year. It'll come up around the Super Bowl. Anytime I see teams on the 1 yard line, there's a flashback. Not great. And this reflects like the key thing resulting of passing the ball. If you look at the math and all these things, then logically passing the ball actually was not that bad of a decision, and it could be a good decision. And it's because of the result that there was an interception. The odds were actually like pretty unlikely, based on just the past things that happened at the 1 yard line. But because of the result, it looks like one of the worst decisions ever. So yeah, reliving that, not great. But check the book out; it's a great book. And this is not consolation at all, because it's not even like the Seahawks winning. It's not the Super Bowl, but this is another case of resulting. Recently, Bill Belichick got some criticism for this decision to put Gronk deep to try to stop a pass that probably wouldn't have been, or like there wasn't going to be an end zone pass on that play. So it is this case of resulting. And then and I heard Chuck Klosterman talking about this on the Bill Simmons podcast, and yeah, it is just this thing of the result was bad. But if it was the other case where if someone just made a tackle, then that's the expected thing. Or even if like it ended up being Gronk making the tackle, then it's like, oh wow, what a bold move to put the tight end on defense. And anyway, it's resulting. And check this book out, Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke, and also check out her appearance on the Knowledge Project, and that's free. So that's on Farnham Street. Really insightful conversation there. Thanks a lot. And hit subscribe if you like this. that would be a great decision, or that would be a decision that makes me happy, my present self, and my future self. So, thanks a lot for the third time.